What is going on, guys? Jim Surratt, owner of Hammer Strength and Conditioning, coming back at you today with another F8 Customs gear review. Okay, so last video I reviewed their briefs, the single ply, and then the HD multiply. So today I want to review their bench shirts. So we're just gonna jump right into it, okay? So I have both a single ply and a double ply bench shirt from F8. Now, they make a triple ply, which I've not yet been able to get. I haven't been able to, just like the squat suit I was talking about yesterday, been able to justify purchasing it personally. Like, I would love to have it. I don't think it's too expensive or anything like that. It's just something that I can't justify in my life right now. But let's talk about the shirts, right? So single ply, double ply, and then a triple ply option. So first and foremost, the material is, I think, the same as their single ply briefs, right? So this is not the HD material. I would love to see, if possible, I don't know if it is, or if it's realistic, or if it would even like be beneficial, an HD version of the shirt, just because I love the HD material. I think obviously the heavier duty stuff provides more support, more stopping power, more rebound, more pop. So it'd be really interesting to see an HD shirt, if viable, right? And if not, it is what it is. I'm just giving my opinion, right? But if we're looking at the aesthetics of the shirt, very clean design, right? Again, so that's based off Metals shirts, at least as far as I understand. If I'm wrong, please somebody correct me. But yeah, sort of based off the Metal design, looks very much like the Metal M line. So for those of you who are familiar with Metal, they had like a black and sort of orange single ply line. It was called their M line. It was, I think, a shirt, briefs, and suit. So very much based on that, I think. Again, very clean, very well put together, right? Aesthetically pleasing, good solid lines. Chest plate is probably about, oh, I don't know, maybe about 6 inches or so. So good collar, well put together, thick, solid, even on the single ply. So from an aesthetic perspective, from a construction-based perspective, it's very well done. Now, as far as the shirt goes from a technical execution perspective, so the single ply for me, so I should caveat or preface all this with, I'm a terrible bencher, right? I think I've benched maybe 500 pounds once in a shirt when I was like healthy. For those of you who don't know, I have 2 herniated discs in my neck that pinch the nerve that runs into my triceps. It's gotten a lot better, but like I'm sure you can tell, like if you look at me, my right arm is much larger than my left because the triceps on this side have atrophied. So it's very difficult for me to bench. I'm a sub 300 pound raw bencher, and like a mid 300 pound shirted bencher. So it just is what it is. I've learned to accept it. It's frustrating, but you know, there's not a whole lot I can do about it other than maybe surgery, and that is not a route that I'm willing to go right now. So, the pros of the shirt, so the single ply shirt for me could be tighter, right? The good thing about the shirts is they're custom sized, right? So they're built to your measurements. Now I'm sure they have like stock sizing sort of templates that they use in some capacity, but both of the shirts that I've ordered from F8 have come custom or have been built custom. So that's really what's nice about their shirts. Is that you get them custom sized as compared to their briefs that I reviewed yesterday or the last video that are stock sized, right? So these are built to my specifications. I could have made this tighter because, like I said in my video about the briefs and the suit, single ply obviously relies more on compression and tension than it does on layers, right? The less layers you have, the more compression and tension you're gonna need in your material to get the desired outcome. So this could be tighter, but that's all right. Both the single ply and the double ply are very forgiving shirts. What I mean by that, so anybody who's worn a bench shirt knows that there's, depending on how low you jack the collar, and we can talk about that in a second here, the lower you jack the collar, the harder it is to touch, right? Now, I have not jacked either of these shirts to an extreme level, right? So when you jack the shirt, for those of you who don't know, see if I can kind of just get this on a little bit. So when you jack the shirt, or when you put the shirt on, the shirt rests across your chest, right? And when you pull this all the way on, the shoulder coverings, like I guess the pauldrons I guess you could say. Come up over your shoulder, right? So it covers your armpit and covers the crease of the chest and the delt. And that's one of the rules in powerlifting is that crease, your armpit has to be covered, right? And you can get around that by wearing a singlet that goes over top of it so the judges can't see it, right? But anyway, so the shirt comes up over your shoulders and then it comes down on your chest. Now there's different designs in chest plates and collars. It really comes, just like in anything with powerlifting, or at least in geared lifting, it comes down to what works best for you, your body, your leverages, and your technique, and your strengths and your weaknesses, right? So to go back to jacking the shirt, I'm gonna try to stay on point here. So when you jack the shirt, you pull the shirt down, right? And so basically what you're doing is you're lowering the tension point. You're putting the point of tension in the shirt lower on your body so that it creates more tension as you load the chest plate, which is right here where this big F8 is, this big playing card, okay? And the collar, so the collar stretches, the chest plate stretches, you load tension and you store energy into that chest plate. And then when you press, just like with briefs, you get that rebound and that pop off the chest. And then the material in the triceps is supposed to help carry you through to your lockout, right? So there's different schools of thought based on, each company's perspective, each company's philosophy on whether it should be like a super low cut, like a U-shaped, if it should be more straight. It just depends, right? I think like the katanas from Titan have there's also like sleeve angles, like the Titan katanas have like straight sleeves versus angled sleeves. The sleeves are torqued to create more tension. I've seen shirts that have, I think it's another like Titan shirt, has like a more like squarish U-shaped, so like not like a true horseshoe, but like a very like angular sort of cut on their collar. So the F8 shirts, so I can get this up a little more, have what I'd call sort of like it's not aggressive, right? And so what I mean by aggressive is not super scooped, right? But it is rounded, it does scoop. It does come down towards your chest or down towards your nipple line or towards your sternum. And it allows for opportunities to jack the shirt down to create more tension, right? So maybe I can get this double ply on a little bit better. This single ply is tight and I'm also sweaty. So this is the double ply. It might go on a little bit easier. There we go, that's a little better. Okay, so this one fits a little bit better because it's not as tight. But again, chest plate's about 6 inches, plus or minus. Obviously the double ply has another additional layer of material, so it has more support, more rebound, more pop, and doesn't have to be as tight to get the same effect. But if I were wearing this fully, this would be up over my shoulder, and then I could jack it down as I wanted to create a more sort of horizontal flat line, to create more tension across it as I bench, right? Because as you come down, the shirt's gonna bind up. And then you have to start tucking your elbows, and there's different schools of thought, like you can stay a little bit wider, or you can tuck your elbows, right? But to get away from that tension, to get to a touching point, you're gonna have to do a couple things. You're gonna have to tuck your elbows to reduce some of the tension on that chest plate, or you're gonna have to dip your hands one way or the other, either dump it down towards your belly or dip it back towards your chest, neither of which is a good idea, right? If you ever watch me bench, I'm really notorious for belly benching. And that's what you see a lot of big benchers do, is they arch up real big, they push their gut up high, and they touch that bar down towards their belly button. Now, there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but the way that I do it is incorrect because I get down towards my tension point where the shirt starts to lock up, and I let my hands drift out forward in front of my elbows. So it puts me in a position where in order to press, I have to rock back and then press out of it, right? So not the most efficient technique, but it suffices. We'll just keep this one here. So pretty good chest plate, pretty good collar. Again, sort of like you can see, it's like a very soft V. It's not quite a U, and it's not quite a sharp V. Very like soft valley type chest plate collar combo. The collar is thick, so like I kind of touched on, with benching, or with a shirted bench, or a bench shirt rather, your collar is what stores most of the energy, right? It provides most of the support and then most of the rebound, right? So this collar is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 different seams. Well, there's 1, 2, there's like 3 different seams in this. Okay, so there's 3 on the front and then 2 on the back where the collar folds over. It is not diamond stitched or grid stitched. So like the Inzer SDP, the Super Duper Phenom, has a very characteristic, sorry, I'm out of breath. It is hot and I'm fatigued. But the SDP has a very distinctive like diamond. That's kind of inappropriate. Diamond shaped grid stitch on the collar, which like I talked about yesterday with the grid stitch in the briefs, helps create additional tension and reduces the pliability. That's the word I was looking for yesterday, pliability. Reduces the pliability of the material by binding it together harder, right? So this has stitching across it, which is just fine, right? It doesn't have to be diamond stitched. I'm not saying that the diamond stitch is any better. This is still very good stitching. It's a very thick supportive collar. I would love to try out a triple ply shirt because I think that for me, it would be the most beneficial. So again, the shirt is very forgiving. So where I think I was going with all of this is that it can be very difficult to touch in a lot of bench shirts, especially the more radical shirts like the SDP can be very difficult to touch in, especially, and if you jack the collar down, it becomes harder and harder to touch, right? You get more support and pop out of the bottom, right? But it becomes harder and harder to touch. So you need either more weight and then the strength necessary to press out of that, or you need a forgiving shirt, or you need to have super dialed in technique, or all of the above, right? The good thing about these shirts is that they have a very forgiving groove, and that's the technical term for a shirt, right? So the groove is like the path that the bar follows as it comes from the rack position, the extended position down to the touch and back up, right, into the press. That's the groove, right? And then benching and shirted benching, that groove can be very fine. The tolerances on that groove can be very finite, very fine, and very precise, right? If you get a little too far in front of your elbows, a little too far back behind your elbows, flare too out a little bit too wide, you're gonna get out of your groove and you're gonna lose the support and the pop of the shirt. I think I've touched, in the single ply, I think I've touched 315. Again, I'm not built to bench. I have not a huge chest, I don't have a big belly, and I have long arms. So I'm not a bench specialist by any means. I'm not Tony Carlino, who is built literally to bench. I mean, the dude is good at other stuff too, but like, I mean, I just watched him bench like, what, a 1045 to a one board in a poly. So insane, right? But these are very easy to touch in, right? So if you can touch 315 in a shirt, as a 250 pound man, you found a forgiving shirt. I don't want to insult myself, so I'm not going to. But very easy to touch in, very forgiving, very sort of flexible groove. It allows you to recover from a misgroove a little bit better than something a little more radical, right? I think these are great shirts. Like I said about the briefs, I will never go back probably to anything other than F8. I love the idea that you can custom size a shirt and that you can be like, hey, I gained 15 pounds and my previous shirt doesn't fit me, here are my new measurements, and they build one for you. Or, hey, I lost 10 pounds, I need a new shirt, and they build one for you. I think that's a phenomenal idea. I don't know why more companies don't do it, but I think F8 it really hit the mark, hit the bullseye, so to speak, with their custom shirt sizing. So yeah. This one's seen a little bit of wear and tear just by being in my bag and being taken on and off. And like, you can see the material holds up really well. So one of the ways that you can essentially like seat a bench shirt, because when you pull the bench shirt on, especially if you're by yourself, you want to make sure that the armpit of the sleeve is up in your armpit, right? And so one thing that you can see, especially on this right side, is where I've like dug my chest plate and my pec, my armpit into the barbell to help push that, to help seat that shirt better into my armpit, right? So a little bit of wear and tear on it. But I think I've had at least 455, maybe 495 with some reverse band in this shirt. Definitely not the single ply, but the double ply, I think I've had over 400 in. Sometimes when you get a new shirt, you can hear like the threads pop and settle and sort of set as it expands. None of that in this. None of that in either the double ply or the single ply. Very well constructed, very solid construction. You can tell that whoever is their tailor or their seamstress or their fabricator, whether it's Rob himself or somebody else they've hired, really knows what they're doing. So that's a very quick down and dirty review of the shirts. I'm not as qualified to talk about benching as I am squatting and deadlifting because I'm not as good at it. I do, one con I think of the shirt, if I'm just being honest, is that it is so forgiving, right? And so typically when you have a forgiving shirt that's easier to touch in, you don't get quite as much pop out of it, right? So whether it's the material strength or whether it's the collar thickness or the collar density or design or whatever it is, right? The easier it is to touch in something, usually the less you get out of it. So it could be slightly less forgiving, whether that's a slightly smaller chest plate, not by much, right? And that could probably be a customizable option that F8 offers that I just don't know about or I didn't do. Like I'm not trying to disparage anybody here. I'm just trying to be honest about my opinion, my reviews of this. So if this were a little bit smaller, I'm not talking like, 2 inches on each side, maybe like a ½ inch on each side to bring in like an inch, or maybe like a ¼ inch on each side to bring it in ½ an inch. Because the collar stores the energy, but the chest plate is what allows the expansion, right? So as you come down, the chest plate expands, and that's what you're bellying up into is that chest plate, and that collar is storing that energy, right? So the tighter the chest plate, the less forgiving the shirt is, and the more aggressive the groove is, right? At least in my opinion, or my understanding. So it could be a slightly less forgiving shirt. I think it would still fall easily within the tolerances of being an easy shirt to learn, right? I've benched in everything, right? I've benched in, like I said, metal. I had a metal jack. Well, I had an Inzer Phenom when I first started that I hated. And then I moved into the metal jack, which I stuck with for a long time and I liked, but I didn't know any different, right? The metal jack I think the jack has multiple seams down the chest plate. So again, there's more tension. The jack is I don't know if this is jack material. It might be, I think it is. So for those of you who have experience with metal, you know what I'm talking about. Like they have their metal ace, they have their metal jack, their king, their bash, their bencher, and whether that's just different materials or different cuts, I'm not really sure, but I know that the jack material was different than like the ace material, and the construction and design of the jack shirt was different than that of the ace shirt. So I think this is probably built off like a hybrid of the ace and the jack, at least as far as the design. I think the material feels like the old jack material, like the old orange jack material, for those of you who know what I'm talking about. But Inzer Phenom, metal jack. I messed with like the metal aces for a while. I bought another couple metal jacks. I Frankenstein my own like metal ace together. I put in I had Chris at Pack-a-Punch I had a double ply jack or double ply ace. I had him put another sleeve inside of this so I could get more support for my left arm when it was really jacked up. I've done the Inzer SDP. I have a triple ply SDP that actually F8 altered for me. They fixed the collar on it. I don't think they do that anymore. I don't think they alter or customize or fix competitor equipment anymore. Totally makes sense, right? I've tried Overkill, their red line, and their old maroon line stuff. And then the F8. And I think, and again, this is my opinion and my perspective, right? And this is not paid for, this is not endorsed, this is not promoted. I think that for me, right? For somebody who needs something that can be easily touched in and still provide support, pop, and rebound, this is where it's at, right? So this is stronger than like the ace or the jack from metal, right? It's a similar design, just like I talked about yesterday with the briefs. F8, in my understanding, took metal's designs and either modified them or improved upon them, whatever it may be, right? But this is a more solid construction and a less forgiving construction, in my opinion, than the ace or the jack, right? So this is a good hybrid between. So the ace was supposed to be a little bit stiffer, I think, and the jack was a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more flexible or pliable. This is somewhere in the middle. So I think this has like a jack or an ace type collar with a jack type construction. I have an Inzer SDP, a triple ply with the diamond collar that takes, about 400 some odd to touch in. It's cool when I want to like just try to throw some heavy weight around, but I'm not very good at it, right? Like I can't press with this arm for shit, so it doesn't really matter. So I would rather have something that is forgiving enough to allow for technical execution under sub-maximal load without having to like put myself in danger, right? Or put my spotters in danger. So overall, I think from a quality construction perspective, hands down, one of the best shirts I've ever had. Again, seams haven't popped, nothing's torn. Again, a little bit of wear and tear on the edges, but that's my fault. That's from me abusing it, not from the shirt itself wearing out. Inside is clean. Again, no like super sharp edges or ragged threads or anything like that poking or stabbing at you. You can tell it's double ply the way it's sewn together. You can see the layers in it, so you know what you're getting. Again, sewn together, not laminated. But yeah, it's a very good overall shirt. Probably not the most radical shirt out there, but if you're in the market for something that is supportive, but also forgiving, and that you can learn how, and okay. Not a starter shirt, right? But a great learning shirt, right? A great opportunity to teach yourself or to learn how to bench in a shirt, right? Because if you get something like an SDP with the big thick diamond collar, triple ply, especially like the black material or the old black material, right? It can be very unforgiving. And if you make a mistake, shit goes south really quick, right? The metal, like the true metal material, the metal cuts, in my opinion, are too forgiving, and they're not supportive enough. Now, which says a lot about how strong like the 90s and the 2000 powerlifters really were, when they're benching like 700, 800, 900 pounds in metal or, early Inzer gear, right? Because like that stuff, in my opinion, was probably less supportive and less radical than what we have today. So it just goes to show how strong they really were. But yeah, if you want a shirt that you can learn how to bench in safely and well and correctly, hands down the F8 shirt. Can't say enough about it. I'm gonna start repeating myself if I keep going, so I'm just gonna call it good. But again, would love to try the triple ply. We'll probably at some point when I can justify it. I think even like a double ply shirt with a triple ply collar would be really good, right? Because again, that's where that energy is stored. So something like that. So a little bit shorter than yesterday, but I'm only reviewing 1 or 2 pieces of equipment as compared to 3 and talking about suits and all that kind of stuff. And also I'm just not as good at benching as I am squatting, so I don't really care as much. Anyway, that is it for today. Thanks for checking in. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And as always, don't waste the pain.